Cunha's annoying little brother, or Brazil's Firmino regen? Just how good is Joao Pedro?
Can he make up for the own goal at that end earlier in the game? Because it's Joao Pedro!
Joao Pedro's goal threat from a numbers point of view is a bit mind-boggling. Non-penalty goals sits at just 0.118 per 90, well behind Musiala, Eze, Maddison, Cunha, all of them who offer far greater natural output. His overall XG though is high, but that seems to be heavily inflated by penalties, which tells me that he's not a player who's regularly getting himself into goal-scoring positions in open play, and that's a concern if you're looking at him as a reliable goal threat. When he does shoot, accuracy around 38%, not disastrous, but not elite either, so average. From the penalty spot, he is very composed, confident, a technically sound taker, so credit there. Where it gets more complex is the ball striking, technically quite capable, both feet, dinked finishes, unorthodox angles, bit of a maverick, but that unpredictability comes with a downside. Everything feels off the cuff. He's not a Messi, he's not Henry who would get themselves into repeatable patterns, working the same zones, same angles, same finishes over and over again. And these habits build consistency and ultimately big goal tallies. Pedro, by contrast, feels more chaotic. There's flair in his finishing. There's moments where his unpredictability will open up low blocks, catch defenders off guard. But where's that structured go-to finish? It's hard to see him evolving into a 30-goal-a-season player. The raw ability is there, technique, variety, but he needs to channel that unpredictability into something more structured.
Over too deep for Newcastle comfort. Gruder sets up Joao Pedro.
Pedro thought about shooting. Wriggle past a couple of...
Pedro's dribbling is one of those areas where there's clear raw talent, but the numbers suggest he hasn't fully maximised it yet. Statistically, 3.92 dribbles per 90 is decent, but it's not standout when you compare it to the likes of Musiala, who practically doubles that volume and also does it at a higher success rate. That said, his dribbles are high-risk, forward-thinking actions, which naturally lowers that success rate because he's not recycling the ball, playing it safe. He's trying to break through lines, commit defenders, progress the game. And from the eye test, you can't help but feel intrigued. He does give off that street footballer vibe. Not lightning quick, he's not Mbappe, but he's got enough pace and more importantly, fluid and controlled with it. Yeah, you don't always know what he's about to do, but crucially, he seems to know. And one of the big strengths is that first touch. Sharp enough to beat players without alone, create space to immediately start driving forward. Scrappy too, but I wouldn't say he's as strong as a Cunha in physical duels. I'd say in central pockets, especially down that left side, he's got the tools to shift direction, eat up ground in transition, draw fouls. Not the most precise or surgical dribbler compared to Jamal, but there's enough raw ability here to hurt teams. His ability to glide past the first man is good, but he's not going to slalom past 3 or 4, but 1v1 against the right opponent, he's going to be dangerous.
An element of control about Brighton's performance in this first half an hour of the game. Yes, City went ahead and had a moment, but
when it comes to link-up play, Joao Pedro is not going to be a final third orchestrator. Statistically averages just 25 passes per game with a 77% accuracy rate. Solid, but not standout. You know, someone like James Maddison's a proper playmaker, around 50 passes per game, really dictating the rhythm. Pedro's profile is more aligned with someone like Cunha, not heavily involved in midfield possession, but springs to life once that ball enters dangerous zones. Eze probably in that bracket too. Now, watching Pedro, he's not built to be a classic number 9 in terms of hold-up play with his back to goal. Physically, he's just not going to be strong enough, but in a false 9 role, that's where his dynamism and movement helps him to escape defenders and float into little pockets between the lines. Doesn't pin centre-backs, but once he's lost them, that's when his link-up can shine. Technically, his short link-up play is pretty sharp. I don't think that 77% pass accuracy tells the full story. I think part of it is that Pedro is taking risks with progressive passes. I think in a more top 4 type of team where possession structures are more polished, I think those numbers would creep up. Now, there's a frustrating element to his possession game. Sometimes there's the odd underhit or mistimed pass, but when he does spot a runner and he commits to threading the ball through, his execution is generally quite slick. When his head's up, he's got that vision to pick out clever passes and link up with teammates. So overall, not a player who's going to be a metronome in the build-up, operates in moments, and he's better suited to quick combinations in tight spaces, but he's a tidy, instinctive player who's capable of high-end moments, but he's not going to be a conductor. Want access to world-class coaching drills developed by the great man himself, Johan Croy? Well, Pythagoras in Boots has partnered up with Croy Football to deliver you exclusive tactical content. We also feature behind the scenes footage of the recent Croy Football tournament, which featured the likes of Ajax, Barcelona, the finest youth teams in the world. And next year, we're going to be seeing the likes of PSG and Chelsea joining Man City, Atletico, you name it, they are there. We also have exclusive insights with interviews with the likes of Jordi Cruyff to give you a real feel for that Cruyffian football philosophy. So check the description below for a discount link to the Croy Football methodology and level up your football IQ.
Into the air it goes, and Minter.
Creatively, Joao Pedro's numbers don't exactly jump off the page. 0.18 assists per 90 is decent, nothing groundbreaking. Expected assists sit lower than most of his direct peers. Not really threading balls through at a high volume either. But the eye test tells a more layered story. Pedro's one of those players that does surprise you, pulls off very high difficulty passes that showcase real technical class outside of the foot, disguise, quick layoffs under pressure, little passes that open up space when it looked impossible. It's the kind of subtle creative work that doesn't always show up in the raw assist numbers, but you can definitely see the tools are there. His ability to execute passes in crowded areas stands out. He can control the ball in one motion, assess the picture quickly, thread passes through tight gaps. The weight of his passes is generally good, crisp, efficient, designed to maintain attacking rhythm. Yeah, occasionally he'll get excited, he'll overhit the ball, but I don't think there's any technical flaws on this part. Sometimes it's his teammates just not reading his intention fast enough. Interestingly, his creative influence isn't limited to the final third. He can drop deeper, receive the ball, and play very progressive passes from midfield areas, which is quite rare for a player that's labelled as a forward. So it's hard to pigeonhole him as a number 9 type of player. He's got more to his game. I think with better coaching, better structure around him, top level runners, I think there's potential for him to become a false 9 who stitches play together with high-end technical execution. I can imagine him playing for Brazil, pulling off that front line, linking up with players like Vini, Rodrigo, Rafinha. His skill set seems tailor-made for that system. I think he's got far more finesse and IQ in his play than a Richarlison.
Joao Pedro, what a pass. Gross. Caicedo goes with it.
Ayari, Adingra again. Big chance! Big goal!
One of the more fascinating parts of Pedro's game is his aerial ability, and for a second striker of false 9 profile, it's above average. Now, statistically, 3.63 aerial duels per 90 tells us that this is a player who wants to regularly compete in the air, but he backs that up with 45% success rate in duels. He's also a genuine goal threat, and the eye test backs that up. Fearless in the air, explosive leap, sharp timing. This is a guy who scores tough headers, not just free ones from inside the box. He's scoring from almost near the edge of the 18-yard area, scoring from angles where the ball is curling away from goal, positions where his body shape isn't ideal. So he's got a high-end heading technique. And you can see him making late ghosting runs into the box, attacking set pieces with real intent, and pulling off diving headers. So there's a bit of a spectacle to his aerial game. Even when he misses, it looks like it's a good effort rather than a wasted chance. Outside the box, when it comes to general link-up play, his heading is decent but less dominant. He struggles when pinned up against proper centre-backs, doesn't quite have the raw strength to hold them off in a body-to-body duel. That's where he needs to be a little bit smarter, drift wider, isolate himself against smaller fullbacks or midfielders. That's where his leap would give him a clear advantage, and then he can win flick-ons or keep attacks alive more easier. Nevertheless, to hit that next level, particularly in terms of physical duels with big centre-backs, I think he needs to use his arms better, create that separation early, and not let defenders bully him by getting close body-to-body. Overall, he's got the tools to become one of the most dangerous aerial threats in Europe. We've analysed the game at the highest level, and now we want to represent the people that play it. Pythagoras Boots are now officially FIFA qualified football agents, and now we're partnering up with Dave Lawrence, a former sporting director and female first team ladies coach at West Bromwich Albion with over 20 years of coaching experience. He's also been an agent for the past 5 years, a UEFA licensed coach as well. So together we're looking to provide expert player performance analysis, legal support with my legal background, mental well-being, anything that you need on or off the pitch, we can holistically deliver it. So don't be afraid to check the description, get in contact with us to see what next-gen player management really looks like.
I think Brentford coming back from 2 down with 8 minutes to go against Manchester.
From a defensive perspective, Joao Pedro's numbers are a little bit underwhelming when you compare him to high-energy forwards like Cunha. Averages just 3.15 defensive actions per game. Not terrible, but I think he could do more, particularly with someone with his athletic profile. Now, the dual success rate is 58%, but someone like Musiala is 73%, and we will see why. Now, the frustrating thing is that the tools are there. He's quick, dynamic, he is rangy, but sometimes I think his tackling is a mixed bag. His favourite is that outside of the foot hook tackle, which looks slick when it comes off. A bit risky, could pick up cards from it if he mistimes it. Standing tackles are okay, but in one-on-one situations, there's a bit of a flaw. So if a player shifts him quickly when he squares him up, his tendency is to dive in a bit too early. He's got this eagerness to win the ball, which is good, but it does make him easy to wrong foot at times. I think he needs to be a bit more patient defensively. Wait for the attacker to fully commit rather than reacting to the first body swivel. Perhaps be more proactive. Marshal them into a direction where you feel comfortable. Now, if he sharpens that part of his game, I think his natural quick reactions and athleticism should help him to become more effective in terms of ball winning. One thing he does well is intercept passing lanes. That long limbs, the ability to cover ground, helps him to block off angles. And when he does win the ball, his first touch means that he kills the play in terms of he's won that ball, it sticks close to him and he's retaining possession. So overall, there's potential for him to develop into a more complete, hard-working forward defensively. But right now, it feels like there's another gear that he hasn't hit yet.
Good man to come on. Here's Pedro. Really good ball in.
From a crossing perspective, Joao Pedro is not really going to pull any trees. Now, from the eye test, he is capable of generating some whip, pace, even curl on his crosses using this valve strike technique that he favours. So he's kind of punting it in. Got a little bit of two-footedness, which adds unpredictability. He can drive down the flank and dig balls in. But the technique, whilst it's okay, it's relatively solid. I'd say he's hitting the ball into zones rather than truly picking at teammates with precision. What I'd like to see is target runners in a more calculated way. At the moment, it's a little bit more hopeful, more about creating chaos rather than threading a pass onto someone's head. In transition, when the game opens up, he's got the right instincts to get the deliveries in early, but I'd like to see a bit more composure, awareness, little details like slipping the ball through someone's legs, disguising the pass, delaying it half a second to find the right target. That could elevate his crossing output significantly. So foundations are decent. He has got whip, dip, curl, unpredictability, 2 feet, but there's a lot of refinement needed if he's going to be a real threat from a wide area.
Joao Pedro. Minte.
Statistically, Joao Pedro's long passing quietly stands out. Now, he doesn't rely on long passes as a primary weapon, but when he does use them, there's some value to it. Now, switches of play-wise, it's decent, particularly when it's curled passes out to the left side, which seems to be his go-to pass when he's trying to open up the pitch. Now, what really catches the eye is how quickly he looks to play those passes first time as part of combination play, particularly when there's movement ahead of him. He's got awareness and technique to ping balls in behind for runners without even needing a settling touch. Now, when he does take a touch, he can flick the ball up slightly, which allows him to set himself for a half volley into space. And that gives him even more options, so he can mix it up with short layoffs or disguise a more direct ball in behind. Technically, there's nothing flashy or revolutionary about his long passing, but it's functional, effective, and it adds another layer to his link-up play. I think in terms of improvement, I'd like to see the switches be a little bit sharper, a bit more precise in terms of their placement for his teammates to take in their stride. But overall, good fundamentals. When he drops into deeper positions, particularly in transitional moments, he's capable of clipping those balls over the top and creating problems for defenses.
For Mitoma.
From a tactical perspective, if we look at the existing Chelsea team, it's kind of difficult to see where does Joao Pedro fit in? What problem is he trying to resolve? Now, that's even without including Gittins. Now, I've created a mock-up of what Chelsea could look like with Joao Pedro. I think if he was to come into the team, that midfield three of Caicedo, Fernandes and Lavia, one would have to go to create some space within the lineup for a number 10 or supporting striker profile. Now, I've pushed Palmer out wide because I think out of the two players from the right, Palmer's probably going to be more effective. I think Joao Pedro could probably play out from the left as well, but if they're bringing in Gittins as a big signing, also they're looking for a 1v1 specialist out in wide areas. Jamie Gittins is going to be your man, not Joao Pedro. Now, one of the beauties of having Gittins in your lineup is that he resolves quite a few problems Chelsea have in wide areas. Now, Gittins is the type of profile that can go down the line on his own, put the ball in. He's someone that can also go inverted if he needs to, but basically he's a one-on-one specialist. He's not going to need much support from a Cucurella. Now, in theory, Madueke and Neto should have been able to do the same, but Madueke for some reason kept cutting in with his dribble rather than going around the outside and seemed very reluctant to put crosses in first time. You're not going to have the same issue with Gittins. He's a lot more direct. He's not going to play around with his food. Now, that will allow Joao Pedro to operate in more centralish areas. You're not going to have to worry about being out wide and having Cucurella as a non-overlap. Gittins will handle that wide business on his own. So then that allows Joao Pedro to get on the ball, play threaded balls through, link up with Delap and be an enhanced goal threat. So far, so good. Now, on the opposite side, this is where the problem comes in because Palmer is not going to be able to boss that flank on his own week in, week out. He's going to want to roam into these centralish areas and particularly into this right half space. That means someone like Reece James is going to have to find himself in this area. Now, if this was young Reece James, no injury problems, this would not be a problem. Reece James is one of those fullbacks you can trust to handle a flank on his own, but this is going to put a lot of stress on him from a physical perspective if he's going to have to provide that flank play on his own, particularly if Cole Palmer is the right wing selection. So there's slight issues here for Maresca that he has to bear in mind. Another potential option of using Joao Pedro is using him as a false nine. Now, the issue with using him as a false nine is that Cole Palmer isn't going to be making runs in behind consistently, and he doesn't really have the pace to do that again and again and again. So if Joao Pedro drops into these deep pockets as a false nine, he's going to need runners ahead of him, and Palmer isn't really going to be that type of player. Palmer's going to be quite deep as well. Then you've got Jamie Gittins, who does have the pace to make inverted runs, but generally doesn't really have an elite level, goal output. He's someone that really wants to stay out wide and supply others rather than be the finisher himself. So that front three wouldn't make sense. So you'd probably need to bring in someone like Neto into one of the wing positions. Ideally, you'd have two quicker players ahead of a Pedro so that he can feed them. But again, there's not enough goal output in these wide forwards. So Joao Pedro as a false nine isn't going to be terribly effective within this Chelsea framework. Finally, another way that Chelsea could use Joao Pedro is in a front two. Now, one way of doing that is a 4-4-2 diamond. Now, what that would allow us to do is bring Lavia back into the setup as the deep line playmaker. Caicedo can then operate as a box-to-box midfielder. Enzo Fernandez will also have the freedom to enjoy playing in the deeper areas, get forward in support and possibly be a goal threat as well. Cole Palmer then free to roam in this number 10 spot, knowing he's got three midfielders behind him. And then that allows Joao Pedro to operate in this left half space as well as make runs in front to be a striker as well. So that, and him and Delap could play in a front two and play off each other. So far, so good. I think that kind of looks healthy. Again, the big issue we've got is James then having to provide the width constantly. So that's a worry. I don't think he's got the athletic capacity to do that anymore. Cucurella, for me, gets a nosebleed generally when he gets into this area. He wants to sort of stay in this region here and link up with a winger. I don't think he's at his best if he's just going to be the fullback, being asked to provide a high level of attacking output. So that's a concern. Another possible solution is if you take Chalobah out of the team, you go with a risky back three of James, Colwill, Cucurella, and you go with a 3-2-4-1. I think this potentially looks healthy as well because you've got Neto then, providing the width. You've got Gittins providing the width, something that Maresca wants. He wants wide players to hug the touchline. Then you've got a midfield double pivot of Caicedo, Enzo, potentially Caicedo, Lavia. And then that frees up Palmer and Pedro to play as inside forwards behind a Delap. I think this potentially is the most functional setup Chelsea have in an attacking perspective. It's very risky off the ball, but on the ball, I think this looks the most healthiest that I can conjure up and that it makes sense. In conclusion, Joao Pedro is a bit of a tactical headache. He's not really going to provide a solution to any existing Chelsea problems. In terms of tactical profile, very similar to an Nkunku, a player they've already struggled to integrate. Now, in terms of his technical ability, his physicality, I think there's a player here who does have world-class potential. I could imagine him as a world-class false nine for Brazil at the World Cup next year with runners around him of high quality. Is he going to be a world-class number 10? I don't think he gets involved enough in the conducting of the play to be a number 10 type of player, but as an inside forward in a front two, that could potentially work. But it comes back to this tactical incompatibility. It's going to be very interesting to see how Chelsea integrating in the team when they're bringing in players like Gittins, and Maresca traditionally wants two wide players as well. So will there be room for Joao Pedro and Cole Palmer? Big question marks as to how this is all going to work. So that slightly makes me a bit worried as to whether he'll reach his ceiling or not. But I do think he's got a world-class ceiling if it all clicks, because at the moment I feel like he's underperforming on a lot of different metrics, but there's talent there. If he's coached correctly, those metrics will improve. They're not a true reflection of his level of ability. Anyway, let me know what you think about Joao Pedro as a signing. What's his best position? Please like, share and subscribe, and see you guys again next time. Bye.
joy for Mourinho.